Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. Talk a little college football, because it has certainly been a very interesting couple of hours since all of the spring games wrapped on Saturday. If you listen to Monday's show, we talked a lot about two spring games in specific. One, we talked about Alabama, where it does not appear as though Nick Saban is very happy with his quarterback room right now. But the other one we talked about was at Colorado, where Coach Prime Deion Sanders made his debut in Boulder. And my prime takeaway from Saturday, no pun intended, my prime takeaway, that wasn't intended to be funny, and it wasn't funny, but neither here nor there. My main takeaway from Saturday was, I actually thought everyone was so focused on the spectacle of Coach Prime, debut, all that. I thought the football itself was actually maybe a little bit better than people gave it credit for. Now, obviously, the whole time it wasn't 11 on 11. It wasn't ones versus ones. There were times where the offense was working separately from the defense. There were no real special teams. But at the same time, I thought the football was just better than I was expecting. Shedeur Sanders is a stud. We talked about him. The offense, the tempo that they're running with Sean Lewis as the offensive coordinator I was very impressed by. But then also, there is a fair amount of skill position talent around Shedeur Sanders. Now, again, part of Colorado's success this year is what they're going to be able to do on the offensive line and the defensive line, and really the defense as a whole this offseason. But I thought the talent around Shedeur Sanders was pretty impressive. We'll first look at Travis Hunter on a national stage. He looked awesome on both offense and defense. Dylan Edwards, the high 4-star, low 5-star running back who was committed to Notre Dame, ends up at Colorado. But then really, the breakout star of Saturday was a young man by the name of Montana Lemonious-Craig, a holdover from last season, who was actually the second leading receiver a year ago for that 1-11 disappointing Colorado team. And so he was one of the few holdovers that's left, and he got himself a national stage on Saturday. He was phenomenal. 154 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, that big pass from Shedeur Sanders that was on every highlight reel coming out of that Colorado spring game. RG3 was on the call and absolutely raving about him. So you sit there and you say, wait a second now, maybe there's a few more guys left over that can actually contribute next year than we were anticipating from that disappointing 1-11 season. Well, the answer isn't exactly what we thought, because on late Sunday, really about 24 or so hours after this kid had just an unbelievable Saturday spring game, Montana Lemonious-Craig, he hit the transfer portal. He was one of several players to hit the portal for Colorado, but he is obviously the marquee one, right? He was the breakout star of the spring game, becomes a national household name. 24 hours later, he hits the portal. So 2023 in college football, you can't even believe it. But at the same time, what stands out to me, it's not just that he hit the portal, because Colorado, like everybody else after their spring game, they did have a few players leave. I don't know what the exact number is right now, but I think it was 4 or 5 other guys that hit the portal. None of them were certainly to the contributors, to the status and to the contribution status of Montana Lemonious-Craig. But at the same time, I just bring it up to say very simply this, is that while every team loses players to the portal, this one felt a little bit different, and it does not appear as though everybody at Colorado was happy, because as soon as it happened, or even as it was happening, Shedeur Sanders, Coach Prime's son, who's the starting quarterback at Colorado, he happened to be on Instagram Live, and he did not sound happy. Here is what Shedeur Sanders said. I'm just saying, people have their own crooked ways about themselves, bro. I can only control me, man. He continued, somebody said MLC, Montana Lemonious-Craig, in the TP, the transfer portal right now, man. I'm just saying that's foul, though. I'm not going to delete that picture, but I am not, since we ain't men no more. In other words, the kid hits the portal. I was boys with them. I'm not boys with them anymore. So it's clear that they're not very happy about this at Colorado. But what I want to do is break this down. And what I will say about this situation is this. I believe that since Coach Prime has gotten to Colorado, I don't believe there has been a more supportive guy in the national media than me. I just love everything about what he is doing at Colorado. The recruiting, the branding, the way that he elevates his players with social media. But I got to call a spade here. And if, in fact, the folks at Colorado are upset by this, I actually think they have no real reason to be at all. I mean, you're allowed to be upset. I don't think it's justified in this case, and let me explain why. It's not even necessarily, by the way, for the reasons that you think. Because here's the thing, right? There are a couple obvious reasons as to why, personally, I don't think Colorado has much of a leg to stand on. One, we can like it, we can hate it, we can whatever. This is the new world of college football. Listen, I grew up in an era, you're part of a team, right? You go through trials together, tribulations together, you fight together, you do all this, you start on the bench and you earn your starting spot when the next guy leaves. That's just not the world we live in anymore. And as every coach will tell you, the biggest change in their job over the last 2, 3, 4 years, and it's just the reality now, you have to re-recruit your roster all the time. It's not just in the offseason, but it's when the portal opens in the fall. It's when the portal opens in the spring. It's staying in touch with everybody in the summer. This is just part of it. And everybody deals with unexpected departures. Listen, you talk to the folks around Georgia, they were not expecting that kid, Bear Alexander, the star defensive lineman who was a big part of what they had planned for 2023 to hit the portal. He actually committed on Sunday night to USC. They didn't expect him to leave. Alabama's lost some guys that they wanted back over the last couple of years. USC, as good as Lincoln Riley's been, has lost some guys in the portal. Clemson, you go on and on. Everybody loses guys they don't want to. Re-recruiting is part of the deal, all that good stuff. But beyond that, what I would also say is this is the new world from a different perspective as well. We hear players all the time say that college sports, it's a business, man, and I got to make business decisions. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. We have been conditioned, I think is probably the right word, by the media, by fans on social media, that we have to accept that players, this is the new world. They have more freedom. They have more control. They have more power. And I have basically supported it. I don't love the transfer portal. I've said from the beginning, I don't think we need the one-time transfer. If your coach gets fired, if you're a grad transfer, if your coach leaves, whatever, you're allowed to transfer without sitting out. Everybody else just sits out for a year. I think that's the easy solution. But my opinion doesn't matter. This is the new reality. But what I have also done is I've defended coaches and coaching staffs. I defended Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, in college, John Calipari, Penny Hardaway, Juwan Howard, whoever. Because everybody wants to say, these players, they got to have rights. It's a business decision. Well, it's a business decision for the school as well. And so if a player can leave whenever they want, I have no problem with a coach basically running off a player, saying you're Scott. That's the world that we live in, and it has to be a two-way street. I have no problem with players getting recruited over. Well, if you can bounce anytime, we have to prepare for the possibility that you can bounce as well. So this is the new world. But what I think is specifically interesting and unique about this situation is that it is just a tiny bit different with Colorado and Coach Prime. And this is why I do not blame Montana Lemonious-Craig. Do you remember Coach Prime's introductory speech with his team at Colorado? If you remember, what was the famous saying that Coach Prime said to his team the first time he met him? He essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing this part, he said, some of y'all got to get in the portal because you're not good enough to play here. But then what did he add? He said, I'm bringing my own luggage. It's Louis. In other words, we're bringing in some really good players, and there ain't going to be a spot for all y'all. And so I bring it up because that's the new world, right? When Coach Prime said that, I defended him. When people got mad at him, I defended him. I said, this is the new world. If players can leave whenever they want, then guess what? Coaches can tell them to get the heck out too. But at the same time, I was thinking about this when I saw the news that Montana Lemonious-Craig was in the portal. I said to myself, wait a second now. I wonder how that kid felt at that moment. And I wonder how that kid has felt over the last 3-4 months as he has seen many of his friends, many of his former teammates decide to leave the school. Because if I'm that kid, listen, if I'm a young football player, I have the opportunity to play for Coach Prime, I'm probably going to do it. But there is an emotional element to this as well, and you can't blame the kid for being mad. You can't blame the kid for sitting there and saying, wait a second now. You just told me I wasn't good enough. You made this a transactional relationship. You told me, hey, if you ain't good enough to play here, I'm booting you the heck out. So now this is, you made this a business decision for you. I'm bringing my guys because I think those guys are going to help me win. Well, guess what? Now I got to make a decision for me. Colorado ain't Louis. I'm going to find Louis at USC, at Alabama, at Georgia, at whoever will recruit me. And so listen, in the end, Colorado's going to be fine. Coach Prime's going to find his dudes, all that. And especially at wide receiver, like they're pretty set. Travis Hunter's going to play some wide receiver. The 4-star Amarion Miller, who committed over Nebraska, is on campus already. Adam Hopkins, 4-star, is coming. Beyond that, a couple really good portal kids, including Jimmy Horn from USF. So Colorado's going to be fine. Nobody's throwing a pity party for Deion Sanders, for Coach Prime. But at the same time, I'm here to tell you, man, I have defended Coach Prime, but when you make that, we're bringing our own luggage, it's Louis, you can't then be mad that a kid said, okay, I'm going to ball out on national TV, use this stage you provided me, and I'm going to get the heck out of here and do what's best for me.